As I had mentioned earlier, the pastors feel that something we could exercise together as a church family for the month of November is 30 days of Thanksgiving. So be sure to be on the lookout for more details each week as we send out suggestions and prompts about how we could be thankful in both word and deed. And alongside that, I'd like to call up Sylvia from the board of directors, who will also kind of share a way that we can demonstrate our thankfulness to God.
Good morning, CLC. I'm Sylvia Chin, one of your board members. I love numbers, so I'm going to update you with some new financial numbers. So, like I said many times before, every time we have financial updates, it's kind of like a family meeting. So it's more intimate. So again, I'm just going to say that if you're visiting today, thank you for coming. But if you don't feel like you want to be part of it, we understand, and you can excuse yourself at this point. But I do want to extend a warm welcome to new college students who are among us. I don't know where they are, but this could potentially be your first financial meeting at your new family. So welcome. I invite you to stay, get to know us a little bit better. You're an integral part of our church, so we love you guys. So with that, I want to start by saying that, the last update that we had was back in July and August. So at that time, we did something called a deep dive. We did 5 sessions altogether. We went to different home groups, or through Zoom or in person here. At that time, it was just very intentional being in a smaller group setting so that people can ask as many questions as possible. So at that time, we were using numbers for the first 5 months of the year. So from January to May. So now we're in October. So we actually have the first 3 quarters of the years, the numbers that we can share. So let's go to the next slide, the new slide, number 2. Can we make it bigger? It's just hard to see. So the first column, if you can see it, is the first 5 months, and then the second column is the first 9 months. So this is our profit and loss statement, and we'll start from the top. So the giving income line is the one that I want to highlight. For the first 5 months of the year, just to give a bit of a context. So at the beginning of the year, actually, we provided a budget. At the time, we said for us to have a balanced budget, we would need, on average, an income level of 70,000. Yeah, come on up. It's totally okay. So the budget, we were hoping to get an average of $70,000 of giving income per month. So, this is good. So the 267,000 would translate to about $54,000 of income per month. So behind budget, but if you look at ever since we had those sessions, if you look at the September year-to-date giving number, it kind of ballooned up, like all the way to 605, and that's an average giving income of $67,000. So I want to thank everyone. Thank you so much. I want to commend you for being a good student. You listen, pay attention. But more importantly, you love God, and you love this church. And everyone, for the last 4 months, or even for the last 9 months, you really did what you could to help CLC ride through this particular season. So good job. So if you look at the income compared to the expenses, one thing I do want to point out is when you look at the income actually grew at a much faster pace than expenses. You can see clearly that between the 2 columns, the income has more than doubled, whereas the total expenses is a little bit lower, right? So if we scroll down a little, that would get us to the operating surplus and loss. Because of the phenomenal giving that we got in the last few months, we turn it around from a loss of $32,000 at the time we talked about it to a surplus now. We have more income than expenses now, all the way up to September. So we have a surplus of $51,000. So good job again. Yay! So the natural question is, oh, this is good. I like what I see. Can we just take the foot off the gas pedal now? And my answer is no, absolutely not. So when you think about it, you're running a 5K and, we started slow, then we started warming up, and then we got in a good pace. And now we're actually in a pretty good pace, but there are 12 months in a year. We already, we only went through the first 9 months. We're setting a good pace. We have the last quarter of the race to run to the finish line. So we need to keep the pace, and we need to, if not, accelerate, right? So we're looking at the past. So let's go to the next slide to look into the future. What do we need to do in the next few months? So this is the financial projection that we have. We had a budget at the beginning of the year. Then we as we knew more, we adjusted it. So the first column is the projection for the full year this year versus the second column being the actual full year profit and loss for last year. So now that we're closer to the end of the year, we have a better grasp of how our expenses are going to be. So the first column reflects the adjustment that we made. The good news is it looks like our expenses overall is actually going to be about $40,000 lower than what we projected in the beginning of the year. So at the beginning of the year, we thought our expenses for the whole year was going to be about $809,000. But now it looks like it's going to be $770,000. So that's good news, and I think we need to thank the staff and the ministry leaders for being diligent and just being really careful with how we use our financial resources this year. So the expenses side is good. So now it's kind of looking at the giving side, and that's kind of harder to project because, from the previous slide, we could tell that, okay, well, we really had a good last 4 months of giving, right? But Gordon and I tried cutting and dicing different ways, trying to figure out, did people give more, or did people just kind of push forward what they were going to give anyway, just push it forward, right? Because, if it's the second scenario, what we're saying is, instead of having a traditional higher Q4 giving number, we're actually going to drop, right? So we really don't know how it's going to turn out. So the conservative thing is we kind of feel like we think we can get to the level we had last year, which is the $687,000. But if we had that level after expenses, we're still going to have a loss of $65,000. So the $65,000 number is a little bit, it should be familiar with for most of you guys, because $65,000 is almost the same number as the amount for the Berkeley office lease. So it's just one of those things that we kind of talked throughout the year, that we have we have this building, but we also still have that lease until the middle of next year. But we cannot rent it out, so we still have to continue to pay for it, and that's why that's the reason for us to have a loss this year. And if we scroll down a little bit more, not only do we need to remember the 65,000, we also have to remember that we need to be in compliance with the lender's loan, restrictive loan reserve. So the debt covenant is that we need to have a net income of at least $20,000 in order for us to be in compliance. And if we are in compliance, they'll slowly release part of the loan reserve, because I mean, $150,000 that belong to us, we cannot touch it because of the debt covenant. But if we meet the loan reserve requirement, they'll release $75,000 back to us next year. So if you add the $20,000 requirement plus the $65,000, we need like $85,000 altogether to bridge the gap, providing that we have the same giving level as last year. So what does that mean, right? So if we go to the next slide, so the $85,000 essentially generates a few action items for us for this coming month, 2 months, because we are already at the end of October. So there are 3 items that the board is asking people to consider. So the first action item is, to the extent you can, push forward your giving and finish it by the end of November. Thank you. And this is purely for logistical reasons. So if we can have as much giving that we know we're going to receive by the end of November, we close the books. It takes time to actually figure out how we stand financially, right? So by middle of December, we will have a good idea of whether we are meeting the goals, or if we're not, what do we need to do? And we still have 2 more weeks that we can do something about it. So that's why we're asking people to do the end of November thing. And then the action item 2 and 3, they need to go in tandem, because the numbers only work if they both work well together. So the second one is consider giving at least the same amount as last year. And then number 3 is participate in the Every Piece Matters campaign. So the Every Piece Matters campaign is a fundraiser that the board has decided that we're going to do to raise a total of $85,000 to bridge the gap. And we only run it for a short time. It's only just for the month of November. So right now I'm going to show a video about the campaign. And then after that, the Cho family, Han and Sarah Cho, they have something to share with us. Sarah wrote something, and Han is going to come up and read it out for us.
Hello. So yeah, Sarah wrote this, but she's kind of tired of public speaking, so she forced me to read it. Hi, I'm Sarah Lee. Obviously, she's much better looking than I am, but I have been coming to this church since I met my husband Han back in 1995, just before I graduated college. It was the first church that Han and I attended together back when CLC had a young adult service called the Lord's Gate, and Pastor Wayne was our pastor. It was at CLC that I decided to follow Jesus, and where Abby, who is now a high school senior, and Aaron, who is a freshman in high school, were born and attended toddler Sunday school all the way up to youth group. CLC has been a long part of our lives for 28 years, which is why when I heard about this campaign, I didn't think, why should our family participate, but why wouldn't we participate? In my day-to-day life, I pay for services such as our kids' schools, classes, extracurricular activities, summer camps, lessons, sports, and on top of that, we volunteer our time and talents and more money to support fundraising campaigns associated with all these activities. When I do that, I don't question it, because I understand that is how things are run and what we need to do if we want to participate. On a more personal note, I'm looking at Patrick. I've spent the last 30 years as a Cal football season ticket holder, and I've meaning that I've been paying yearly around this amount for pain and humiliation and suffering. Yesterday was particularly bad, right? Up 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, fumbled twice, lose the game on a 2-point conversion. It was fun. So, but Cal is not the most important thing in my life. And going back to what Sarah wrote, God is the most important thing to me, and church is important for our family. We try to come most weeks and participate in fellowship and events. Now that we have our own building, we can come more than just once a week, and we have the freedom to gather and organize whatever and whenever we want. Our kids have Sunday school, youth activities, teachers and mentors. Our family has community and a place to gather and worship and grow together. And just like how all the other activities I mentioned require funds to exist, church does too, and God does too. They just don't require it, but that doesn't mean it's not necessary. So if this campaign is necessary to continue having our own church building and all the benefits that come with that, then we need to participate. I think this is the most important of all the activities that our family is involved in. And so we spend proportionally more of our resources on what we feel is most important. So if you feel similarly, I would encourage you to please be a part of this campaign. Thank you.